The mist rolls thick through the Dandenong Ranges on an August night in 1993. Dense enough to swallow headlights. Cold enough that moisture beads on the windscreen. The kind of night where the ferny gullies hold pockets of absolute darkness, where the road twists through an extinct volcano in a landscape that feels ancient, unknowable, watchful. Cahill stands beside her car. The engine idles. Her husband Andrew sits frozen behind the wheel. And 50 metres away, in a field beside the road, something massive rests on the ground. The craft is the size of a house, rounded, metallic, maybe 50 metres in diameter, but it's what surrounds the craft that turns Callie's blood to ice. Seven-foot-tall beings, moving, not walking, but gliding, faster than any man could run. Their bodies are completely black, but not merely dark-coloured. Callie will later struggle to describe this blackness. It's as if all matter has been removed where their presence should be, like a void in the shape of something alive. Their limbs are elongated and grotesque, their abdomens distended. Their skin resembles grey-black plasticine, not quite solid and not quite real. But it's their eyes that Callie will never forget. Welcome to Strewth, a podcast exploring Australia's most perplexing mysteries. I'm your storyteller, Mark, and today we're examining a case that promised everything a UFO researcher could hope for. Multiple independent witnesses, physical evidence, consistent testimony, and a credible person with no apparent reason to lie. What the Callie Cahill encounter delivered instead was 3 decades of unanswered questions, a 300-page investigation report that was never released, and a woman who risked everything to tell her story, only to watch the evidence remain locked away forever. This isn't just about what may or may not have happened on a misty road near Yuma Creek. It's about what happens when the search for truth becomes its own kind of mystery. The Dandenong Ranges rise like ancient sentinels east of Melbourne, the remnants of an extinct volcano now blanketed in some of Australia's most atmospheric terrain. Regular listeners to the show will remember our last trip to the Dandenongs, where we explored the unsolved disappearance of Willie Copen, Australia's first celebrity chef from the Cuckoo restaurant. Mountain ash trees, the tallest flowering trees on earth, tower over dense, ferny undergrowth. Mist and fog are common, and light snow occasionally dusts the higher elevations. After midnight, roads like Belgrave Hallam Road wind through patches of near total darkness, past market gardens and paddocks, beautiful flower farms. This is the traditional land of the Wurundjeri and Bunurong peoples of the Kulin Nation. Historical accounts note these mountainous areas were often considered resting places for various spirits, and reports of strange lights in the Dandenongs date back to at least 1909, decades before they became an international phenomenon. The encounter that Callie Cahill had began in stages. First, both she and her husband Andrew saw what Callie described as a round shape with windows and lights around the bottom, hovering above the road. They could see silhouetted figures through the window. "I swear there's people in there," Callie said. Then the object shot away as fast as it could go, vanishing in a split second. About a kilometre further down the road, an intensely bright light filled the road ahead. Callie shielded her eyes, but Andrew kept driving. And then, nothing. Their next conscious memory was sitting calmly in the car, continuing down the road. Callie's first words to Andrew were, "What happened? Did I black out?" Neither of them could explain the transition, and both noticed a smell, vomit, though neither had been sick. And when they checked the time, they realised approximately 1 hour had gone missing from their journey. Over the following days, the memories that we described in the opening scene began to surface. Not through hypnosis, this is a really important point, but through conscious recall. Callie remembered seeing the craft resting in a field beside the road. It was massive, rounded, the size of a house, 50 metres in diameter. Those 7-foot tall beings. And their eyes. Those red eyes. It all came rushing back to her. They were huge, like flies' eyes, glowing burning red, fluorescent, brilliant, cutting through the mist like stoplights visible from 150 metres away. Eyes with no soul behind them. Eyes that made Callie understand in an instant that whatever these things are, they're not human. Not even close. One of them started to glide towards her. Callie's voice tears from her throat. "They've got no souls. They're evil." A male voice responds, but telepathically, calm and almost amused. "Would somebody do something about her?" Something strikes Callie in the stomach. Not a fist, not anything solid, but the impact is real, forceful, like being punched from the inside. She doubles over, gasping. Her vision goes white, and then black. Violent nausea rolls through her body. She can't see, she can't breathe, can't think beyond the overwhelming need to get away. Callie's next conscious memory is sitting calmly in the car, continuing down the road. The sound of the windscreen wipers sweeping back and forth, the heater humming, and everything is normal. Except 1 hour of her life has just vanished. Her husband Andrew is beside her, driving, but his face is blank and confused. In response to Callie's first words, "What happened? Did I black out?" Andrew doesn't answer, because he doesn't know either. Within days, Callie will discover a triangular mark burned into the skin below her navel. An equilateral triangle, each side approximately 1 centimetre long. It looks like a burn and the skin is punctured, and there's a second scar too, resembling a laparoscopy incision. Within 3.5 weeks, she'll be hospitalised with a severe womb infection. Doctors will tell her she must have been pregnant or had some kind of gynecological operation, and Callie will deny both. The doctors don't have an explanation. Something very real had happened to her body, something real enough to require medical intervention, and no one could give her any answers. On October the 4th, 1993, about 2 months after the incident, Callie Cahill made a phone call that would change everything. She contacted Bill Chalker, a Sydney-based UFO researcher with a reputation for serious, methodical investigation. Chalker listened to her account and recognised immediately that this required intensive field investigation in Melbourne. He referred Kelly to Phenomena Research Australia, PRA, a Melbourne-based organisation led by John Orcatel. It was a decision Chalker would later deeply regret. PRA began their investigation with apparent thoroughness, multiple interviews with Kelly, physical examination of the encounter site near Yuma Creek. They claimed to find ground traces, magnetic anomalies, unusual radiation readings, and perplexing chemical anomalies. Kelly had the physical evidence on her body. She had medical records of her hospitalisation. She had her husband as a witness to at least part of the experience. But she needed more. She needed someone to corroborate her story. Someone else must have been on the road that night. Someone else must have seen what they saw. So, in November 1993, the PRA placed advertisements in the newspapers. Were you on Belgrave Hallam Road on the night of August the 7th and 8th, 1993? Did you experience anything unusual? And then, incredibly, the phone rang. Three people contacted PRA, a man and two women. They claimed they'd been in a second vehicle at the scene that night. John Alcatel kept them separated from the Cahills. Standard investigative protocol, don't contaminate the testimony. He interviewed them independently, didn't share Kelly's account with them, and took them to the location without telling them where Kelly had indicated the encounter occurred. PRA began compiling their findings. The investigation was expanding beyond anything they'd anticipated, because what these new witnesses were reporting, if it was true, would change everything. The three people who contacted Phenomena Research Australia after seeing the newspaper advertisements were given pseudonyms: Bill, Jan and Glenda. According to investigators, PRA could find no evidence these people had any prior connection to the Cahills. They'd never met, never spoken, and lived in different areas. When they were taken to the location independently, they identified the exact same site Kelly had indicated, the same field near Yuma Creek. They produced drawings of what they'd seen, a massive rounded craft, tall beings with distinctive features. The drawings closely matched Kelly's descriptions. And frighteningly, they reported missing time. The same amount of missing time, 1 hour, evaporated from their journey. And there was also physical evidence. The two women, Jan and Glenda, allegedly had identical triangular marks near their navels. The same marks Kelly had discovered on her own body, with both women reporting being strapped to a table and examined during their missing time. Bill Chalker wrote in the International UFO Reporter that two groups of persons unknown to each other have witnessed the same UFO encounter and entities. This was it. The holy grail of UFO cases, multiple independent witnesses, consistent accounts, physical marks, the same physical marks on multiple people, and ground traces at the site. The PRA was compiling everything into a comprehensive report. It would eventually reach 300 pages. They had witness testimony, site analysis, physical evidence, medical records. The Kelly Cahill case was being hailed as potentially the most significant UFO encounter in Australian history, perhaps even world history. But there was a problem that would transform this promising case into 3 decades of frustration. The PRA never released their report. Despite years of promises, Phenomena Research Australia never publicly released their 300-page investigation report. Not in 1994, not in 1995, not even when Cahill published her book Encounter through HarperCollins in 1996. By 2002, Bill Chalker was writing publicly about his frustration. There had been no way to absolutely verify PRA's investigation because of their unwillingness to release their report and data on the case. By 2016, Chalker declared he was determined never to pass a case on to them again, calling the situation an extraordinary lost opportunity. In a 2020 ABC Australia interview, 27 years after the encounter, John Alcatel offered this explanation. We won't release it now because once we release our report, then we become the focus of the case. Our idea was we would release the report and then bring the witnesses out. At the moment, we don't know where they are. The triangular marks that allegedly appeared on the multiple witnesses' bodies, they were never forensically analysed by independent scientists. The ground traces and anomalies at the encounter site, never independently confirmed. The second group of witnesses who supposedly corroborated Callie's account, well, they were never publicly interviewed by anyone outside the PRA. Their real names remain unknown, their accounts existing only in the PRA's unpublished files. Everything that promised to elevate the Cahill case from a single witness story to a potentially landmark case rested entirely on evidence that was never released. In some ways, the investigation itself had become the mystery. So without access to the evidence PRA claimed to have collected, skeptics began focusing on what could be examined. Callie's own account, the psychological context and known phenomena that might explain her experience. Andrew Cahill, Callie's husband, the only other person definitely present during the encounter, didn't support her full account. According to Callie's own book, Andrew told her what happened was in her imagination. He acknowledged seeing a UFO, but claimed no conscious memory of the entities, the abduction, or the missing time. Their marriage ended in divorce. Harvard researchers have documented how sleep paralysis and hypnopompic hallucinations can produce vivid perceptions of intruders, paralysis, and entity encounters. Studies have found that people claiming abduction experiences show higher levels of false recall, magical ideation, and dissociative experiences. Cahill had undergone at least one hypnosis session during the investigation. Hypnotic regression is widely criticised by psychologists for its potential to create false memories rather than recover real ones. And there's also the question of timing. The X-Files television series premiered in September 1993, the same month Cahill began actively investigating her experience. Critics note the potential for cultural contamination, where media portrayals shape how people interpret ambiguous experiences. And Cahill herself reported strange experiences 2.5 years before the August 1993 incident. Patterns potentially consistent with psychological predisposition to anomalous experiences. But here's what the skeptical explanations struggle with. Despite claiming to have seen one, Cahill had no apparent interest in researching UFOs. She was a devout Christian raising a family. She had everything to lose and nothing obvious to gain from fabricating such a story. And she didn't gain anything. Her book sold out and was quickly reprinted, but Cahill never became wealthy. And instead, she lost her marriage, lost her faith, lost her privacy. She became very briefly a big name on the UFO circuit, appearing on television programs like Today Tonight and participating in conferences. But by 1998, Cahill had disappeared from the scene. As Bill Chalker noted, when it ultimately became pretty clear that she was going to be the only one that was going to go public on this, that's when she felt less confident about being the constant contact point on the case. In the early 2000s, Cahill sent Chalker 3 large archival boxes of her files. She left Australia for a period, seeking a fresh start, and she now resides in the Latrobe Valley in Gippsland, Victoria. She declined an ABC interview request in 2020. Cahill wants to take a low profile and put all of this behind her. In her book, Encounter, Cahill described what the experience cost her in detail. She lost her Christian faith. "I still believe in God," she wrote, "but not the way I was taught." For nearly a year after the encounter, she reported ongoing phenomena: shadow figures, strange smells, vivid dreamings that felt different from normal dreams. But perhaps the most devastating was the feeling of abandonment. The other witnesses, if they existed as described, never came forward publicly to support her. The PRA failed to release the report that would have validated her experience. Cahill had staked everything, her credibility, her marriage, her peace of mind, on telling her story, and the evidence she desperately needed to prove she wasn't crazy remained locked away. Yet the case retains cultural significance. It was even referenced in the 2016 X-Files reboot, with Fox Mulder himself explicitly citing the Cahill encounter as a notable alien abduction case. Her book Encounter is now out of print and very rare, with used copies selling from $100 to $250 online. So, more than 30 years after that August night in the Dandenongs, certain facts can be established. Cahill is a real person who experienced something she found profoundly disturbing. She suffered real physical symptoms that did require hospitalisation. Her experience devastated her marriage and her faith, and at least one group of additional witnesses was allegedly located by investigators, although those witnesses never spoke publicly, leaving their accounts unverifiable. The triangular marks, the medical symptoms, the missing time, these are documented aspects of Cahill's experience. Whether they resulted from an encounter with non-human entities, a profound psychological event, or something else entirely, cannot be definitively established. The PRA investigation report remains, at the time of this recording, unreleased. John Orcatel has suggested the report may eventually be released, but not soon. And no additional witnesses have publicly come forward in the decades since. So, we're left with a case that exists in permanent limbo, far too compelling to dismiss, but also too unverifiable to confirm. On the night of August 7th to the 8th, 1993, something happened on Belgrave Hallam Road in the Dandenong Ranges. Something happened to Cahill's body that required hospitalisation. Something happened to her psyche that ended her marriage and changed her faith. And what we do know is that Cahill experienced something that terrified her, and she risked everything to tell her story about it. We also know that the evidence that might have proven what happened to her has remained locked away for 30 years. Maybe there's another reason for that, another unexplored reason. Strewth. Thanks for listening. Next week, we'll be travelling to Murwillumbah. We're off to a bank heist. And trust me, you don't want to miss this one, so make sure you hit subscribe, follow, whatever works on the platform that you use for your podcasts. And keep telling your friends, your family about the show. I've really appreciated all the support. If you've got a crazy Australian mystery that you want me to cover, strewthpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again.